Okay, and I've started the stream. Alright. And I started the stream about a minute early. Guys, give me a second to get my stuff together here. Alright. What's going on, Lamer Linux? Okay, and for this stream here tonight, I actually don't have really anything specific planned. I'm just going to update most or even all of my virtual machines. It's been a couple of weeks since I've really updated any of them. Some of them, especially the static release ones like Ubuntu and Fedora, I probably haven't updated in over a month. So I'm going to open up VirtualBox here, and I'm just going to go through these one at a time. This may take a while. I'll chat about some other stuff, some goings on and Linux news. But anyway, I'm going to start with all my rolling release distros here. I actually haven't opened up Antergos in a while. I'm sure it needs to be updated. Let me make sure it only is going to open up on one monitor. It is. I actually run a triple monitor setup here. So sometimes when I'm living in these, I have them set up to open on 3 monitors, but I don't need to do that for purposes of this recording. I just need to open it on one monitor, on my center monitor. And of course the SuperBowl is kicking off as I start this stream. I actually do watch football, but I'm actually not that interested in this year's Super Bowl. The team I was rooting for didn't quite make it, and I'm not interested in seeing the Patriots win yet another Super Bowl. And this is Antergos Cinnamon. I installed Antergos Cinnamon. Actually, I think the first or second distro I ever reviewed on this channel was Antergos Cinnamon, and I've had this VM since then. I've kept it up to date and running. I've actually really enjoyed Antergos here, the Cinnamon edition. A lot of y'all keep requesting that I do some other Antergos versions. I've had a lot of requests to do the KDE version, the XFCE version. I've been asked to do like a minimal install of Antergos and install OpenBox on that, which that seems really interesting. I might do that one day. I've also had a few requests for Antergos Deepen. I'm not sure if that's something I'll do down the road or not, but I do find the Deepen desktop environment interesting. And anyway, I'm just opening a terminal here and running sudo pacman -S lowercase yu just to go ahead and get Antergos updated here. I think it's been about 2 weeks since I ran an update, so being a rolling release distro, this could take a while. But while that's going on, let's see if I can find some stuff to chat about, since this update may take a minute. Obviously, some of the things we can discuss are some of my more recent videos and some of the comments on those videos. Let's see. One of my most recent videos was the one I did, how do I run my Windows programs on Linux. I actually got a lot of feedback on that, both in the YouTube comments. I had a few people message me on Facebook, especially people that are actually thinking of switching from Windows to Linux, and you know, they wanted to know the correct path to go, you know, for, you know, their particular use case scenario, you know, what they use Windows for, the software they use, how they should go about basically getting off Windows and onto Linux. I was actually probably a little harsh on that video, how do I run my Windows programs on Linux, because basically my solution was just to forget Windows software even exists and just choose to run Linux software. And I know for some people, you know, that's a tough thing to do. For some people, because of work and school, it's an impossible thing to do. What I was thinking of doing down the road, though, I need to do some videos on Wine, how to set up Wine and install software in Wine. I actually mentioned Wine in that video, and I mentioned a website you guys should check out that are not familiar with Wine, and that's the winehq.org website. And what that is basically it is a database of all the software people have tried to get running in Wine. You go to their app database here, and you can search basically for anything, any program you like. So you guys remember my last stream when I interviewed Tony, and she wanted to install WoW in Wine, you know, World of Warcraft. So if I searched for World of Warcraft, you know, we're going to get some search results here. Also, in the app database, I noticed they have a top 10 platinum list. I guess these are the games that run the best in Wine. So you got things like Final Fantasy XI that apparently run fantastic in Wine, StarCraft. You got some Steam games that run good in Wine, but we have Steam on Linux. I'm not sure why you need to run these in Wine. Counter-Strike. Counter-Strike Source apparently is a platinum Wine game. Elder Scrolls 4, Civilization 4, Half-Life 2, Company of Heroes. Anyway, looks like this Antergos Cinnamon update needed to end up update about 40 packages. Doesn't look like it's anything too large. Looks like the Xorg server needs to be updated. Hopefully that goes well. Some of the packages that can really mess up your system if an update doesn't go well. The X server, the Linux kernel obviously is the worst one. The init system, systemd, would be another package you want to watch out for. In the chat, we have some folks saying hi. Analog IDC, hello. Hello, Analog. Tony is also here. She says hi, Derek. Hi, Tony. That's cool. She showed up since I just mentioned her by name from the last stream we did. The last stream we did, we had Tony install Linux Lite inside VirtualBox. And I talked her through that actually over the phone basically, and she was able to get Linux Lite installed no problem for just me talking to her over the phone. So it shows that installing Linux is not as difficult as some people make it out to be. Tony is a Windows user, by the way, so she's not really experienced at all with Linux. Although she really wants to eventually leave Windows behind, and she wants to install something like Ubuntu on her machine, but she's worried about her games, so we may end up eventually wiping out Windows on her computer, having her install Ubuntu, trying to get Wine set up mainly for her World of Warcraft. One of the interesting little bits of news here in the Linux world in the last week, it seems like every Linux news site, one of their biggest articles is the fact that Skype is now available in Linux as a snap package. I'm not sure exactly why everybody thinks that is huge news. I mean, Skype has been available in Linux for a long time. It's been available in a lot of repos. The AUR for Arch has been available as a PPA in Ubuntu forever. I think it's cool that it's now available as a snap package, because that, makes it even easier to install. But apparently a lot of people think that's big news. Maybe I don't think it's quite as big a news, because I really don't use Skype, being that it's a Microsoft product and not a free and open source piece of software. Anyway, Antergos has finished updating. One down, and I've got like a dozen more of these to go. Just gonna power off this virtual machine. Moving on, Antix. You know what, since I mentioned that Skype is available as a snap, I should actually install it, the snap package of Skype, in one of these VMs. I'll pick one of these VMs here in a minute and actually try to install Skype as a snap package. Maybe one of the Ubuntu based distros, since I know all of them have the snapd installed on it. And this is Antix here. One of my favorite Debian-based distros, Antix. And I'm just going to do an apt update and apt upgrade. There's your standard apt command to upgrade your system. That command works in every Debian and Debian-based system, Ubuntu and Ubuntu-based system. That is basically how you update your system from the command line. Oh, let's see. 91 packages can be upgraded. Run apt list upgradable to C. Let's see, did I type something wrong there? Yeah, I did not type apt upgrade correctly. There we go. 73 need to be upgraded. Let's see. Anything important here? And the VirtualBox guest editions will be updated. Various libraries, Perl, some NVIDIA stuff, which shouldn't matter here in a VM. Vim is actually going to have some upgrades. Rofi, the Rofi launcher. Doesn't look like it's going to give me a new Linux kernel though, so that's always good. I always worry about the installation of a new kernel on these, especially if it's been a while since I've updated the system. Really makes for a bad day when you do a big update and reboot a machine and you get a kernel panic or something like that. And this is going to take a minute. While that's going on, I'm going to pull up Distro Watch here. Distro Watch is always great for Linux releases and Linux news. Some of the more recent releases of distros: Cubes OS CubesOS is a really interesting project and one I would love to take a look at sometime. The problem with CubesOS is it doesn't really run in a virtual machine, so that makes it difficult to review. I would actually have to install this on physical hardware, but it is a really, really interesting Linux distribution. Linux Lite, of course, I've looked at a couple of times. I actually installed this on the last live stream we did, Linux Lite 3.8. We have a new beta of OpenSUSE 15.0 beta. Ubuntu's I've actually never looked at. I don't know anything about. Might be something I need to check out down the road. It's based on Xubuntu and Debian stable branch. Q4 OS, I actually just did a video about this this morning. Actually, I released a video of Q4 OS 3.1 testing, which I had really knew nothing about Q4 OS before I made that video, and I was blown away by Q4 OS. It is a Debian-based Linux distro, which is great, and it includes the Trinity desktop environment as their desktop environment. The Trinity desktop environment is basically a fork of the old KDE3 desktop environment. Extremely lightweight. When I checked system resources for Q4 OS when I was doing that video this morning, it was only using about 260 megs of RAM. That is the lowest memory footprint I think I've seen on any of these VMs I've done since I started DistroTube here. So, and it's a full desktop environment, the Trinity desktop environment. You know, it's not some really minimal window manager. I mean, it's got everything you need, a panel, menus, you know, all the peripheral stuff. Was really impressed with Q4 OS. Still waiting on Antix to update. OPNsense I've actually never heard of. It's FreeBSD based though. I don't know much about BSD. I've installed FreeBSD a few times and PCBSD back in the day, which is now TrueOS. But never really been that interested in the BSDs. Parrot Security I haven't had a chance to look at, but I probably need to check out Parrot sometime. Red Core Linux, I actually did a video on Red Core Linux 1801 when this was released a few days ago. The main developer of Red Core Linux, I've actually chatted with him a little bit on Discord. He seems like a great guy. He is great with feedback too. Any problems you have with Red Core, any criticisms you have of it, he works hard to try to solve. My initial video review of Red Core a couple of months back, I had a real problem with the installer because the installer required a login and a password to run, and that login and password is not on the ISO itself. It's not, you know, in a text file on the desktop or anything for you to find. You have to go to the Red Core website and get that login and password to run the installer, and I kind of criticized Red Core for that on the video. Well, the developer, he heard my critique and he fixed that, and this latest release, Red Core Linux 1801, he took the requirement for a login and a password for the installer to run. He took that out of Red Core, so he listens. Also, he fixed a lot of other stuff that people criticized him on. He mentioned he had one user criticize the way the lock screen of Red Core Linux looked. Apparently one user claimed that the lock screen looked ugly to him, so he worked hard to you know, pretty the lock screen up a little bit and make it look better. So that's the kind of developer that Red Core Linux has. You know, he listens to criticism and he works hard to fix things. Also, you get on his IRC chat channel on the Red Core Linux IRC support channel. If you're having a problem installing software, they'll help you get it installed. If there's something that's not in their repos, they'll work hard to get it in the repos for you. So, really impressed with Red Core Linux as a distro and as a project in general. Some other recent releases. Netrunner. I've actually have not looked at Netrunner before, and I need to look at Netrunner. Netrunner is a very popular KDE distro. And this latest release is Netrunner 2018.01. Features Plasma 5.11.5 Firefox 57 Quantum. Might be something I do here in the next couple of weeks. I've actually been meaning to take a look at Netrunner. And we have a new beta release of Red Hat. Alright, Antix. We got another one down. Let's just keep going through my VMs here and updating them. The next one actually is Red Core Linux. One thing about Red Core that a lot of people commented on when I made a video about Red Core recently was the red theming. You know, the design around it. The design is not bad, but this bright red theme, a lot of people find that a little off-putting. They don't really like the red theming. One person mentioned they thought it was Satan's Linux distro. Another one mentioned that it looked more like a vampire Linux distro, you know, the blood red wallpaper or whatever. I actually changed the default blood red wallpaper to this purple Red Core wallpaper. And I have to remember exactly what the commands for the Sisyphus package manager here is in Red Core. It's the only distro that I know that uses this particular package manager, and I want to say it's upgrade. Yeah, it is. So Sisyphus upgrade. Basically, that command is a wrapper for emerge. It's the same as typing emerge -- sync and then emerge whatever. Basically, the Sisyphus commands are simpler ways of typing the emerge commands in Gentoo. Omar asked me how many distros do I have on VirtualBox. I actually I start running out of disk space when I have about as many as I have now. So usually if I install one and I have to and I want to keep one now, I've got to decide which ones I'm going to let go. So probably about 15 VMs is about all I can keep on this system. This machine has a 500 gig SSD. And of that 500 gig SSD, I have about 120 gigs of music on this computer, so I really only have about 380 gigs of drive space on this computer. You know, between the system and then all these VMs, I can fill that up really quickly. I actually had an issue a couple of months back recording actually a video for this channel, where I created a new 15 gig virtual machine and started installing an operating system in that virtual machine. And my computer started acting up really badly. The video recording started acting up, the webcam program started flickering and doing weird things. The mouse and the keyboard weren't working correctly. And I quickly checked on drive space. It hit me. Man, this drive is probably getting full, because I forgot all about checking that. And it was like 99% full, and I'm still, you know, installing stuff in this virtual machine. So I killed that install of the virtual machine. I actually had to start that video over later. And I was able to kill that install of the virtual machine and delete 3 or 4 virtual machines before the computer really locked up in a big way. So I do have to check on drive space every time I make some of these VMs. Red Core is probably going to take longer to update than most, being that it is Gentoo based. It just is slower in Gentoo than in, you know, things like Debian and Arch, the package management, that is. So we might be here a while for Red Core. For those that didn't catch my review of Red Core, though, Red Core is an LXQT distro. It only comes in one flavor, LXQT. That is the desktop environment they ship with, and it is all LXQT. I mean, it's all Qt programs. I don't think they include any GTK programs of any kind out of the box. Well, no, they included GIMP. GIMP is here. But for the most part, it is all Qt programs. Let me get back to the update here. And it was asking me, would we like to merge these packages? It looks like I have, I don't know, about 15 or so packages that needed updating here in Red Core. Wow, ETA time. I hope that's not correct. 27 minutes, 52 seconds. I knew this would be the one that takes the longest, being Gentoo based. I know Red Core is going to take a while to update, and when I get to it, Sebian, which is also Gentoo based, that one's going to take a while to update. It's just, you know, these Gentoo systems, they're slow. Slow as far as package management, installing, updating the system. Hopefully, though, this speeds up as it goes. Looking around at some of the recent news in the world of Linux, earlier I mentioned about Skype being available as a snap package. I need to keep reminding myself about that. I'm going to install a snap package of Skype on one of these distros. I'm probably going to do it on one of the Arch-based distros when I get to some of them. But also recent news from a few days back, Google is moving to Debian for their in-house Linux desktop. That's interesting. You guys know I love Debian, and I think that's a smart move on Google's part. They were using their own custom Ubuntu version for their in-house Linux desktop that they called Kubuntu, G-O-O, of course, Ubuntu. But they're switching over to just your standard Debian, which is not any kind of real news. Google is a big backer of Debian. They support Debian, so... You guys know that I run Manjaro on my main production machine here. That's the actual host machine I'm running, is running Manjaro. On the Manjaro forums, somebody posted a link to this poll here from opensource.com. What is your preferred desktop Linux distro? And wow, some of these distros have really pumped the numbers. Because this does not represent in any way what the real landscape of Linux distro usage is. Ubuntu and Mint, you know, are doing well in the poll. You would expect, you know, that, but wow. PC Linux OS is #1 in this poll, and by a mile. 2,150 votes compared to 1,600 votes for Ubuntu. So, you know, the folks over at PC Linux OS and, you know, their forums, you know, somebody was really pumping this poll. Because I really like PC Linux OS. My review of it, when I reviewed it on this channel, was quite positive. But, I mean, out in the real world, I've never met anybody that really runs PC Linux OS. So that's strange that when you see a poll like this. I mean, 2,150 votes compared to Arch, which Arch is very popular as far as out in the real world. You do see people running Arch. 735 votes for Arch. So, but knowing the way, you know, the Arch community is and the way the Arch forums are, there's a forum post on the Arch forum saying, hey, come pump the numbers here on this poll. Manjaro, which I said I was running, only got 617 votes. I actually voted in this poll, by the way. It's the reason I can see these numbers. Full disclosure, I voted for Debian. Debian only has 662 votes. 12 people voted for TrueOS. That's not surprising. My review of TrueOS was not a positive one. Hated that particular BSD distro, TrueOS. I really hated the desktop environment. The Lumina desktop environment. It's horrible. Antix Linux for life. That's Negan now. Yeah, I actually need to take a look at Antix. That's another one I've been wanting to look at. The problem is, when I first started this channel, it seemed like every other distro that I was reviewing was an Arch-based distro. So I've kind of tried to slow down on all the Arch-based Linux distros I'm reviewing, and I still get requests like almost every video. Hey, try this new distro I've never heard of, and it's some new Arch-based distro. There's like 1 million of them out there now, and it just doesn't stop. And it seems like there must be 50 Arch-based distros that use the open box window manager. You know, I'm not going to review all of them, because for the most part they're all doing the same thing, and you know, there's a lot of duplication of effort. I wish some of these projects would get together, you know, and combine their resources, and you know, and do something, you know, as a collaborative effort, instead of everybody just doing the same thing. The same thing with XFCE. There's quite a number of XFCE Arch-based distros out there. So have the same critique with all the Ubuntu-based distros. How many Ubuntu-based distros do we need that use the LXDE desktop environment? You know, there's like a couple of dozen of them out there, and you know, about 18 of them just need to go away. Those guys need to join some of the other projects, you know. But I could harp on that all day long about duplication of effort on some of these projects. Oh, I found another Linux poll I can vote in. Let me pull this up for you guys, and I'll actually vote on camera. It's the Linux Journal. They're working on the 2018 Reader's Choice Awards. We have the option of voting for Alpine Linux, Antergos, Arch, CentOS, Debian, Elementary, Fedora, Gentoo, Linux Lite, Linux Mint, Manjaro, OpenSUSE, Slackware, Solus, and Ubuntu, or other. Write in comment. Alright, once again, I'll vote for Debian. Oh, Alpine only got 1 vote. Antergos, actually Alpine has 1% of the vote, 12 votes. Antergos only has 2% of the votes. That's kind of shocking. I get a lot of questions about Antergos, actually. Alright, doing well in the poll is Fedora. Wow, 16% of the vote. I didn't see that one coming. That's actually #1 in the poll, actually, is Fedora. 2 looks like it would be Debian and Mint, both at 13%, Ubuntu at 12%. Anyway, these polls are not very scientific at all. You know, they're just a fun, you know, little exercise for these websites. I probably shouldn't have voted for Debian twice, though, in those polls, being, as I just told you, I actually run Manjaro on my main system. Might get me in trouble on the Manjaro forums. Omar mentions Ubuntu is dying. No, I think Ubuntu's doing just fine. They've got a pretty large install base. Matter of fact, I just mentioned that story earlier about Skype being available as a snap package. The reason that Skype ended up doing that, building that snap package, is mainly because they work closely with Canonical. Microsoft and Canonical work pretty closely on a lot of stuff. So which is strange these days how much involved Microsoft is in Linux. How you know, they're one of the biggest contributors to the Linux kernel, as far as financial support too. I mean, they put a lot of money behind it. Recently, I saw an article about Microsoft and Git, how they support the Git, and it's just strange. Anytime you talk about open source software and Microsoft is involved in some way. It's a completely different Microsoft than the one I knew growing up. That particular version of Microsoft, they pretended like open source software didn't even exist. It was a dirty word. You could never get a Microsoft employee to mention Linux. Linux was, they pretended like that was like the most evil thing in the world. They would never talk about it. And man, this Redcore update, it's not that many packages, but this is taking a while. This is the problem, and this is why even though I love playing around in a lot of these Gen 2 based distros, this is really why I don't run it on any of my main machines. It's package management. Something like this is just too slow. Imagine if this was a really big update. Imagine I was running the KDE desktop environment here on Redcore, and I went a couple of weeks without updating, and all of a sudden I decide to update, and there's 200 packages to update instead of the 15 or so that I'm updating here. This could take hours to update. It's very different when you use something like apt in Debian or Pacman and Arch. If you have a couple hundred packages to update in those particular distros using those package managers, 5 minutes and you're done. Going back to some of the stuff that's going on the DistroTube channel. A few days ago, I made a video called the Obscure Window Manager Project. I took a version of Manjaro, the i3 version of Manjaro, and I installed 11 more window managers on that particular distro. Minimal window managers, what I like to call obscure window managers, the stuff that nobody ever really uses. You don't see them really installed on very many Linux distros. So I have 12 of these really minimal window managers. Most of them nobody even really knows about. Some of them are not really being developed anymore. And anyway, I started that a few days ago, and I got around to reviewing the first of these obscure window managers the other day, FVWM. That particular virtual machine that I did for that, the FVWM one, I'm going to update that here in a little bit too, so you guys will get to see FVWM in action. Anyway, FVWM was the first of those 12 obscure window managers that I installed and tried to get configured. The next one in the list, I think, is JWM. I've had some people message me about when the next one of these videos is coming out. JWM will be the next window manager I do, and I'll probably get around to that sometime within the next week. JWM will actually be one of the easier ones I do, I think, because it's very similar in look and feel and function to OpenBox and Fluxbox. I'm very familiar with those. JWM, I'm sure, will be pretty straightforward, where FVWM really was probably going to be the hardest one that I took a look at, because just the nature of FVWM, there's no standard way to set it up. It's very configurable. Just like, you can't go and look at screenshots of FVWM and figure out what it's all about. Every screenshot of FVWM looks different depending on the user that configured it. It was actually a really neat little project, setting up that FVWM desktop. I might revisit FVWM down the road, keep playing with it a little bit more. Also, for those of you interested in taking a look at that Manjaro i3 edition with the FVWM window manager installed on it, I actually uploaded that virtual machine to SourceForge. I created this page here, the Obscure Window Manager project, and I uploaded the that virtual machine here. You click on Files here and go to this folder Obscure. Inside that you have Obscure Linux 2018-0201 FVWM-OVA. You simply pull that down, just import that straight into VirtualBox, and you're good to go. You've got the same VM that you guys saw me play around in on that video, the same instance of FVM configured as I configured it. And we're still waiting for Redcore to update. Luckily, I only have, I think, 2 virtual machines that are Gen 2 based. This one and Sabian. At least I think so. Sometimes I keep a VM of Calculate Linux loaded here, but I think I had to get rid of it. It was one of those that, because I was running out of disk space, I ended up letting one of the Gen 2 based distros get deleted, and I think I chose Calculate to get rid of. Yeah. Anyway, after Redcore, we need to update Maybox. Maybox is a Manjaro based Linux distribution that uses OpenBox. And I've got a VM of OpenSUSE Tumbleweed I've got to get to. Sabian LXQT. We have Seduction LXDE. Then we have Solus and Void. And then we have our virtual machine of Manjaro i3 running FVWM, which I just mentioned. Then we've got some static release distros, Elementary, Fedora, Mint, Q4S. This Q4OS, this is what I just reviewed this morning. I don't need to update this. I have a Tails 3.2. That's actually an old version of Tails. There's been 1 or 2 releases of Tails since then. I can probably just delete this VM and not worry about it. Matter of fact, I'll do that right now. Right click on it, choose remove, and choose delete all files, and that VM is gone, so I don't have to worry about updating that. We have Ubuntu Mate 17.10. I keep that around because any videos I do about installing Ubuntu software, I usually use that VM, Ubuntu Mate 17.10. Squiggo. Takes as long as a Windows 10 update. Yeah, Windows updates take forever too. Do you think Manjaro is stable like Mint or maybe Debian? Santo asked that. No, Manjaro is definitely not stable like Mint, definitely not like Debian. If you're talking about Debian stable, especially, no. Manjaro is a rolling release distro. There's no getting around that. Now, they hold packages back for a couple of weeks. You know, unlike mainline Arch, they hold their packages back just a bit for you know, stability purposes, just in case there's any major breakages, you know, in the Arch updates. They know about it, you know, and they can fix those. But still, it's a rolling release. Every package on your system is getting updated, unlike something like Debian Stable, where only like the core packages are getting updated. You know, you're doing your security patches and that sort of thing. Goes without saying, the more packages you're updating on your system, the more potential for breakage. That's just common sense. So no, Manjaro can never be stable like Debian. But as far as rolling releases go, Manjaro is probably the most stable rolling release distro I've reviewed on this channel. I've had absolutely no issues with it. I had a VM of Manjaro up for 3 months, and then I've been living in Manjaro here on my main production machine since January 1st of this year. So, and I've had no issues. So, Omar mentions Ubuntu Mate is another great distro. Yeah, I like Ubuntu Mate. It's solid. I really like what the Ubuntu Mate team is doing. AJ mentions he's using Manjaro KDE for the past 2 years, updating it regularly, no problems. Yep. Yeah, I can believe that. I have no problems believing that Manjaro has been running perfectly for a couple of years. Does Manjaro get the latest software updates? Yeah, again, it's a rolling release. Everything on your system does get updated, but it's not like right away. Like they hold packages back, I think, about 2 weeks compared to mainline Arch. So Manjaro in that respect is a little more stable than mainline Arch. It would be more stable than, you know, Gen 2. Gen 2, I mean, is on the bleeding edge. As soon as, you know, an updated package is pushed out, you know, Gen 2 has it. I'm not exactly sure how it would compare with something like OpenSUSE Tumbleweed. I don't know that much about OpenSUSE, to be honest, as far as the Tumbleweed, their rolling release branch. Yeah. I've had no issues with my VM of it, though. Debian Unstable, I'm pretty familiar with. Being a Debian guy, I usually run Debian Stable on all my computers, but I do play around with Debian Unstable a lot in VMs, and Debian Unstable is not stable. The name Unstable is perfect for Debian Unstable because it is unstable. And Debian Unstable is different than something like Arch or Gen 2. If you're running Arch or you're running Gen 2, support is easy to get because every single Arch user, every single Gen 2 user is on the rolling release model of Arch and Gen 2. There's no other model. There's only the rolling release model. On Debian, if you're running Debian Unstable, a very small percentage of Debian users are running Debian Unstable, you know, as their operating system. So, you know, and you're kind of on your own. You know, if something breaks in Debian Unstable and you go to the Debian forums and, you know, try to get help, you might get some help, you might not. Nightwolf, I want to say you do a great job and OpenBox will be a project I'm going to try. Yeah, definitely give OpenBox a try. And I get a lot of feedback from viewers about OpenBox that because of my videos, some of you guys are actually trying OpenBox. OpenBox is actually not that scary to get up and running. I know sometimes I make it look scary, especially when I do those base installs of, you know, something like Debian, where I do a net install of Debian and then try to install OpenBox on it. And the first time you log in, all you've got is a black screen, you know. But OpenBox is not too hard, especially if you just pull down other people's config files or even pull down my config files from my GitHub page. You just import them and you're good to go, really. Squicko says, the Debian community is very special. I'm not exactly sure what he means by that, but I would agree they're very special. If you have to choose one distro to use forever, Debian, Manjaro, which one are you going to choose? Well, it depends on exactly what you mean by that. If you mean forever is I set up a like a server, don't plan on ever updating it and hope it runs forever, yeah, Debian probably is what I would go with. If you're talking about living in it, you know, on a main machine, doing updates, needing regularly updated software, Manjaro might be the better way to go. It's hard to say. You know, different use cases. There's no one perfect Linux distro. Squiggo mentions that he about the Debian community. What he meant was it's not as nice as the Manjaro community. I will say the Manjaro community has been one of the best communities, one of the best forums in particular that I've seen. Really nice people in the Manjaro community. Santo, the only problem I had with Debian 9 is no AUR and some dependency hell with some .deb packages distributed with Ubuntu in mind. Yeah, one of the things about .deb packages that some people don't realize is not all .deb packages are the same. Some of those .deb packages are meant for Debian, Some .deb packages are meant for Ubuntu, and although Ubuntu and Debian are very similar, Ubuntu is Debian based. Ubuntu in a lot of ways really is doing their own thing, so just because something installs correctly in Debian doesn't mean it'll install correctly in Ubuntu, and vice versa. And yeah, I actually do agree that Debian, even though I love Debian, I wish it had a community repo like the AUR. I wish it had something like the PPA system in Ubuntu would be fine too. Nora, I love Kubuntu 17.10. Yeah, when I've reviewed Kubuntu 17.10, I liked it too. I'm not a big fan of KDE, but for a KDE distro, Kubuntu it is really nice. Alright, we're starting to see a little bit of progress in my update of Red Core here. Let me pull up some comments from the YouTube channel. Guess I could go over some of the questions and comments on the YouTube channel. Let's see. Oh my, how do I run Windows software in Linux? Gimmick 2. I used to dual boot many years ago, but now I run Windows and VirtualBox for the sole purpose of updating my GPS maps. So his solution to the problem of running Windows software in Linux is just to run Windows in a VirtualBox. Yeah, I could see that. The thing is, of course, you actually have to have a copy of Windows to run Windows in a VM. RM Selig here on my Q4 OS review this morning. Like you, I am blown away by this distro. I never much liked KDE, but this is a distro that I can use as my daily driver. Wow. Of course, the Trinity desktop is a fork of the KDE 3 desktop. And also from that same how do I run my Windows software in Linux, Surge mentions, for graphics cards you can install VM Player and use as much as 2 GB of video RAM without any tricks. So some Windows games can be handled that way in a virtual machine. So that's good to know. There are ways of configuring your virtual machines to use your video card, your dedicated video card, in a VM so that you can properly run games. Nora mentions installing Zorin OS. Yeah, I did a video of Zorin recently. I actually paid for the paid-for version of Zorin, which they call their Ultimate Edition, Zorin OS 12.2 Ultimate. It ended up costing me about 24 bucks. I didn't mind, you know, donating a few dollars to an open source project, though. It was an interesting distro to review, Zorin. I actually need to pull up that Zorin VM here in a minute anyway. It probably doesn't need to be updated, but there was one thing on that review of Zorin I forgot to do on camera, and that was review the video wallpapers, the animated wallpapers. I mentioned I was going to do that during that video, and I forgot to during my review video. But I think you guys are going to be disappointed when you see it, because it's not as cool as it sounds, animated wallpapers. And the other thing is, in a VM it spiked the CPU to 100% CPU usage, so it's not something I would ever choose to tick on. Alright, how do I run my Windows programs in Linux? Zaneris Falador mentions, let me correct you. A lot of Windows programs you're running, they have Linux versions. They have crappier Linux versions. That's not exactly the word he used. For example, Skype on Linux is so neutered it's not even worth using. I really can't comment to how good Skype on Linux is. I don't use Skype. So, but I have heard other people complain that the Skype on Linux client is not good. And here is a website that was recommended. Alternative to on that, how do I run my Windows software in Linux? One viewer recommended this website, you know. So how can I want to replace, hey, you know what, we were just talking about Skype. How about some Skype alternatives? Let's see what comes up as an alternative to Skype. Of course, Discord comes up, which I'm using Discord. I like Discord. Telegram, Talks, Slack, Hangouts, Signal, Mumble, Wire, WhatsApp, Jitsy's a pretty cool program, open source program. Not sure if it's really a replacement for Skype. Viber's good. Mattermost, Linphone, Facebook Messenger. Yeah, I don't think I'll be using Facebook Messenger as a Skype replacement. But anyway, cool little website here, alternative2.net. Worth a bookmark, I think. Oh, I'm getting really close, I think, with this red core update here. Wow, this VM took forever to update, and it really was not that big of an update. You guys are starting to see why I'm not running any of these Gen 2 distros on my main production machine. I just can't handle these extremely long updates. Really, once I get past this one, most of these others will go quick. All the Debian-based distros and the Arch-based distros should go pretty quickly. Sabian will take a while. I'm not going to do Sabian, though, I don't think, on the stream. I'll save that for when I go to bed tonight. I'll start Sabian updating, since that's another one that's going to take a while. One thing I mentioned when I reviewed Redcore is, you know, the updated theming and the window theming and the icons that they're using. This white icon set, pretty cool, pretty cool. I kind of like these monochrome icon sets, though. Kind of old school. It does seem like there's we could use better icon sets in Linux. I mean, really good icon sets in Linux, there's not that many that I like out there. I like the Breeze icon set, the Breeze theming and the icon set, you know, that's the default in KDE. The Numix icon set is also really nice. The Numix Circle icon set. Papyrus, that's another one I like too, but the Papyrus icon set. I should do a video on some of the best themes and some of the best icon sets in Linux one day. It would be a rather short video. There's really not that many good GTK themes really for Linux out there. I mean, the default stuff like the Adwaita theme, that's standard in GNOME, and the Ambience theme in Ubuntu. Once you get past those kind of default themes, I mean, really you have Arc, Adapta, Numix, Vertex, and that's about it. Have you looked at Nitrix Linux? I have not. Let me write that one down. I will add that to my to-do list. What distro am I currently running? That's iCubic is asking that. If you're asking me that, on my main machine I'm running Manjaro. I run OpenBox on Manjaro. What you're seeing on screen right now is me updating a VM of Redcore Linux. This is Redcore Linux. They use the LXQT desktop environment. Omar mentions he subscribed because you love Debian. Yeah, but Debian gets a lot of love. One of the things I notice on YouTube, looking at a lot of the Linux YouTube channels out there, you know, there's a lot of stuff on Debian. There's a lot of stuff on Ubuntu, a lot of stuff on Mint. The RPM distros don't seem to get a lot of love on YouTube. I mean, that's one thing I think we're missing, is somebody that focuses on, you know, Fedora or SUSE, you know, CentOS. Debian gets a lot of love on YouTube. Probably a little too much. And that's coming from a Debian guy saying that, so. Arch is another one. There's a lot of Linux or YouTube channels that are really dedicated to Arch Linux. Thomas Holt mentions, would you review Blue Star Linux? Yeah, I will make a note of that one as well. Let me write some of these down, or type some of these. Blue Star Linux. Nitrix, let me go ahead and make a note of that one. Let's see, iCubit mentions people don't really see RPM based distros as beginner friendly. Yeah, I could see that. When you think of RPM distros, I mean, the main one you think of is Fedora. Fedora is definitely, I wouldn't recommend that to a new user. Mainly just because of the hassle of getting proprietary non-free software installed on it. In a lot of ways, though, I don't recommend Debian to new users either for that exact same reason. Debian's the same way, only ships with free software by default, and it can be a hassle to get, you know, proprietary drivers and codecs and stuff installed. I understand why Debian and Fedora, you know, choose to only ship with free software. I mean, it's the principle of the matter. I get that. But for new users, you know, it's a problem. That's why distros like Ubuntu and Mint and Elementary, that's why they're so popular. It's because out of the box they just work. Wow, this VM, it has been hanging right here for a while on this emerging binary. The package is installing as Rust. Well, I hope this VM didn't lock up, because that would be a shame if I have to go through all this again. It's not that big of a deal. I mean, none of these VMs are critical to me. If I lose any of them, it's no big deal. The only one I really needed to keep was that obscure window manager one that I installed VWM and JWM and all those tiling window managers on. Because that's a work in progress for that video series, the obscure window manager project I was doing. But the rest of them, if I lose any of these, the rest of them, I really haven't lost anything. I just reinstall them, you know. iCubit, is Redcore a Gentoo spinoff? Yeah, Redcore is Gentoo based. And yeah, this looks like Portage. It is Portage. It is a wrapper around Portage. They call it Sisyphus, S-I-S-Y-P-H-U-S. But yeah, it's basically Portage. It's 100% compatible with Gentoo. Redcore is, so it's very much Gentoo. The install is a lot easier than Gentoo, though. Very quick install. For a Gentoo-based distro. I want to say 20 minutes or so, and you're up and running with Redcore. We're a Gentoo install because you have to build everything, compile everything. You know, it takes hours. In some cases, days, depending on what time of day you start on a Gentoo build. COD Online China. New to Linux, using PC Linux OS Mate. Love it. Yeah, if you're new to Linux, Mate is probably one of the easier desktop environments to get around in. Very new user friendly. Everything's laid out, you know, everything's where you expect it to be. iCubit mentions, wow, that is fast. My first Gen 2 install took a week to do. I hope you were doing that in a VM if it took a week, you know, and you were stopping and starting. iCubit mentions he has since switched to Nix OS. That's another one that I've been meaning to take a look at, Nix OS. It's been on my to-do list for a while, actually, and I just haven't got around to it. There's so many Linux distros. I'll never get around to reviewing everything I want to review. I kind of have to make some choices. You know, the ones that I find personally interesting usually are the ones I end up going with. Omar mentions, Microsoft gives you Windows, Linux gives you the whole house. Yeah, that should be a t-shirt there. iCubit mentioned that that week-long Gen 2 install was actually done on hardware. Okay. For a week, I could only access the internet through my phone. Well, I admire your persistence. I think if it took longer than about 3 days for me, I would have just shut it down and went with something else. For those of you that are looking for Gen 2 based distros, though, if you want to check out Gen 2 without having to go through the very painfully slow Gen 2 install, Red Core that I'm looking at right here is fantastic. Seduction is probably the best for new users. It uses the Calamares installer, very quick install. Seduction also has their own package manager and pre-built binaries, so things are a little faster in Seduction, but it's still slow. I mean, it's still a Gen 2 based distro as far as package management, but Seduction's pretty user friendly. Calculate Linux was another really good one. Those three are probably your best Gen 2 based distros: Red Core, Calculate, and Seduction. All of them are really easy to get up and running in a VM. Probably the install process for all three of them is 20 minutes or less. And they all come with graphical installers. There's no text-based installers. Robert Brown mentions pre-built binaries sort of kill the idea of Gen 2. Sort of. Yeah, I would agree. But, you know, having to wait on things compile, you know, that gets old quick too, Robert. Wow. Installing package 17 of 18 here in Red Core. I don't remember when I started updating this particular VM, but it has to be 45 minutes ago that I started this upgrade. And it's still just emerging binary 17 of 18. Robert Brown mentions, yeah, I run Arch now. It's more balanced. Yeah, Arch is great. Omar mentions he's tried most Linux distros. He keeps coming back to Mint, though. Yeah, you keep coming back to what you're comfortable with, what you're familiar with. We all have our own personal biases. You know, like me and Debian. Me and OpenBox especially. How about when you talk about desktop environments and window managers? no matter what desktop environment is installed on whatever Linux distro I end up running, I always install OpenBox. Doesn't matter what it came with. Santo mentions he wonders when Fedora is going to fix the Anaconda installer. I don't know, the last time, the review I did of Fedora 27, I didn't notice any problems with the Anaconda installer. Is there a particular something they need to fix? Is there some kind of glaring bug? Oh, I'm getting information here in the terminal. I think we're about done here. Ah, that's it. Red Core Linux has upgraded. Oh my goodness. Let me shut this down. No, I'm just going to power it off with the mouse there. Alright. Wow. Alright, so I'm going to quickly update a few more of these on camera. Maybox shouldn't take long at all. It's an Arch-based distro. Unfortunately, let me kill that before it gets going. It's about to open up on 3 monitors here. I've got this set for a triple monitor display. You set that to 1 monitor. Open that again. Maybox is kind of an odd Linux distro. I don't even know if it's really being developed anymore. It's a Manjaro based distro, uses OpenBox. iCubic, you're not even going to read the eSelect news? No. Yeah. I don't think we really have that kind of time after waiting for that update. Anyway, the only reason I keep this Maybox VM around is because this is a really cool OpenBox desktop. Really great theming, beautiful Conky, a lot of the programs installed by default. It's one of the better implementations of OpenBox I've seen in a Linux distro here in Maybox. Again, I don't think this distro is even being developed anymore. This ISO I think was a year, maybe over a year old when I installed it. So, but anyway, I keep it around because I really like some of the tools here. Let me open up a terminal and quickly do an update. And you will notice a speed difference here in Pac-Man compared to Emerge. Alright, we have over 100 packages that need to be updated here. What do you guys want to bet that this takes under 5 minutes? I'm telling you, Pac-Man and Arch and apt and Debian, they're just the greatest package managers. I mean, when you run some of the slower ones, well, it's hard, you know. I just want to run back to these package managers every time I run something like a Equo and Sabian. Yeah, Omar mentions it's a nice clean desktop. Yeah, that's the reason I kept Maybox around. It really is. It's the guy that set this up. He really had an eye for aesthetics. Matter of fact, I actually ripped off the GTK theme. He had his own GTK theme called Maybox Super Desk. I found it on GitHub. I pulled down those themes. He had his conkeys. I borrowed a lot of his stuff. I'm actually using it on OpenBox on Manjaro on my physical machine. So there's over 100 packages to update. I think it was 115. One of them, of course, is going to be the Linux kernel. I know I haven't updated the kernel in a while. So this is a big update. And this is going to be so much faster than Gentoo based Red Core and Sabian as well if I went to the trouble of updating Sabian on this stream. I mean, this is just blazing fast, how fast it's taking care of the Linux kernel. Let's see what else we're updating here. Pac-Man mirrors. GCC is updating. Noob question, can you install HTOP on it? What are you trying to install HTOP, Omar? HTOP should be in everybody's repos though, regardless of Linux distro. HTOP, everybody has it. Any Debian or Ubuntu based distro, sudo apt install HTOP. In Arch, sudo pacman -S HTOP. It's not a noob question. It's a fair question. There are no noob questions. Because not every program is available on every Linux distro as far as in their repos. HTOP though is a very popular program. Everybody's got it in their repos. And this install is blazing fast. Yeah, I should have just did all the Arch-based distros first instead of fooling with Red Core. Santo mentions, what do you think about Libre Linux and SC Linux? Actually, I don't really think anything about them. I don't know much about SE Linux, other than, you know, it's a kernel security module, but not the kind of thing I play around in or read much about. So maybe somebody else has thoughts on that in the chat. Ashish Patel, I hope I pronounced that right. Screw the NFL. Now, I actually watched the NFL. I just didn't feel like watching the game tonight. I've actually been watching professional football my whole life. I'm actually a pretty big fan. For those that are not watching the game, I will give you an update on the score. Right now, the Philadelphia Eagles 15, the New England Patriots 6, with 5 minutes left in the second quarter. So, again, for those interested. And just like that, I am done updating Mailbox. And this is really why so many distros base themselves off Arch. Got a few more seconds before it's done, but that was pretty much it. Robert Brown, I was not even aware a baseball game was on. That's right, Robert. There is a baseball game on tonight. There's a really good player on one of the teams, too. I think his name is Tim Brady. I hear he's pretty good. Alright, Mailbox is finished. Let me get rid of this. Alright, OpenSUSE Tumbleweed. Now, I haven't actually updated that one in a while. I know that one's going to take a while. I'm going to skip it. I'm going to skip Sabion too. I'll do Sabion, like I said, in the middle of the night because I know that one's going to take a while. Seduction. Seduction is Debian based. It should go rather quickly. Alright, let's see if I remember my username here. I think I chose Seduction for my username on this one. iCubic mentions, what's the point of having so many options in the boot menu of a VM? No real point. A lot of those would have booted previous past kernels, so I guess if, you know, the newest kernel was giving me problems, I could go back and start again with an older kernel. Sometimes that works out for you. For example, this LXDE desktop environment. Oh, this is not LXDE. This is actually OpenBox. Let me exit out of this. LXDE uses the OpenBox window manager, so there is an OpenBox session on it, but I wanted the full LXDE session. Yeah, let me show you guys this. This is actually a really nice LXDE distro here, Seduction LXDE. And I've played around in it a little bit. I've added the wallpaper and done some theming. Really pretty distro. Alright, so I need to type SU. In Debian, usually you have to switch over to the super user in the terminal, then apt update and apt upgrade. Alright, 123 packages need to be updated here in Seduction. And similar to Arch-based Matebox, this one, again, you will notice a bit of a speed difference in apt compared to what was going on in Redcore. Nora mentions Puppy Linux ISO is 350 megabytes. Yeah, I actually need to review Puppy on the channel one day. Damn Small Linux, yeah, I should take a look at Damn Small. Are they still developing Damn Small? It's been a while since I've heard about Damn Small Linux. I guess I could actually distro watch that Damn Small Linux. Type the distribution name, Damn Small. Yep, Damn Small Linux based on Debian and Antix. Uses JWM and Fluxbox for window manager. Yeah, the last release was 2012, so yeah, Damn Small is damn dead, so and there was 137 packages that needed to be updated here in Seduction. Look how fast it pulled down these packages. I mean, it's already getting package 131 of 137, so it's really going quick. Yeah, I need to go ahead and add Puppy to the list of things I need to take a look at. Puppy also uses JWM and OpenBox. The last release of Puppy actually was just here in December of 2017. I should have took a look at it. Xenial Pup. That's the one that's based on Ubuntu Xenial. Santo is mentioning that there's a KDE 3 fork called Trinity. I tried it on Debian. It's very usable and compatible with things. Yeah, earlier in the stream I mentioned the KDE 3 fork Trinity because I reviewed K4 OS actually this morning. Its desktop environment is Trinity, and I was blown away by Trinity. I was blown away by the speed, how lightweight Trinity was. It was crazy on system resources. I mean, it used less than 1% of the CPU the whole time I was in the VM. Used 260 megs of memory. Omar mentions, have you tried Ghost BSD? Nora says no. I too, I've never looked at Ghost BSD. Though I've had people recommend it to me that I should take a look at it. Again, I've never really played around too much with the BSDs. iCubic mentions, KDE is too bloated for me. I use i3. I agree that KDE is definitely bloated. And if you like tiling window managers, then i3, I'm sure, works great for you. I like tiling window managers too. I can live in them. I don't use them much now that I'm doing this YouTube channel, because some of the things I use on a regular basis doing this channel, they don't work that well, unfortunately. Tiling. GIMP in particular, because of all the windows in GIMP, that doesn't function really well, tiling. Also trying to display some of these VMs, and then the GUVC View webcam windows sometimes that I do in my windows. If it starts tiling during the video, you know, that would be a problem. So for a lot of this, I actually need to be in a floating window manager. But I have lived in tiling window managers. I lived in Xmonad for a long time. Ran Awesome window manager for a while too. For a few months. I lived in Awesome many years ago. Qtile, I always install Qtile on most of my machines. I actually don't know too much about i3. On the obscure window manager project that I'm doing, i3 is going to be an interesting one for me because I actually don't know too much about it. I'm looking forward to learning a little more about i3 though. Santo mentions Deepin is heavy on system resources. On my 2 GB RAM machine, I can barely use it. Yeah, Deepin is very heavy on system resources. I agree. I ran Deepin in a virtual machine that I gave 6 gigs of RAM, and I had problems running it, you know, on that virtual machine with 6 gigs of RAM and 2 cores of my 6-core CPU. So, again, it's a virtual machine. It's not physical hardware, but still, I probably wouldn't run it on physical hardware unless I just had a really high-end machine. iCubic, Xmonad is great. I just didn't want to learn obscure Haskell library to get it running the way I wanted. Understandable. I don't know much Haskell either. I mean, I know enough about it that I could get around the Xmonad config. But really, once you just start copying and pasting other people's config files, you kind of figure out, you know, what some of the commands are, what some of the libraries are. It's like anything else. I mean, if you live in i3, you're really going to have to put in some effort to learn how to configure i3 as well. Same with Qtile, with some of their Python libraries and stuff. Same with Awesome. There's really no tiling window manager that you're going to configure, you know, in 10 minutes and you're going to have it working exactly the way you want it. You're going to have to spend some time in all of them. Alright, I'm still waiting on Seduction here to finish updating. Looks like it's getting close. And I may actually kill the stream once I'm done with this VM, because I will have been running this stream now for an hour and a half, and I will have only updated 5, count them, 5 VMs. But really, because one of them was Red Core, you know, that took up half of that hour and a half, that one VM. The rest of them I'll do off camera as I sit here tonight. I'll go pour myself a glass of wine and come up update Solus and Void. Void may take a while too. I think they do build some stuff from source too. Could be wrong about that one. I'm not too worried about the static release distros, Elementary, Fedora, Mint, Ubuntu. Mainly I just keep these around to for purposes of this channel. You know, if I'm going to install some software to, you know, some new app or something, I'm not going to install it on my actual machine. I usually just pick one of these VMs here to install stuff on. Robert Brown, so you've obviously been around Linux for a while. Why did it take you so long to start a YouTube channel? This is a good question. It's just not something I ever considered doing. Mainly for sake of time. You know, this is actually time consuming. You know, I've made, I don't know, let me see how many videos I've made since this channel's been up. This channel has not been up, but on February 8th, it'll be 4 months that this channel has been up. And in 4 months, I've made 108 videos. Let me look at the analytics and see what my average run time on these videos are. The last time I looked at it, my average run time on these videos was somewhere around 18 minutes. Yeah. So 108 videos, averaging 18 minutes. Of course, there is some editing. Especially during the installation process of these distros. There comes a point when it starts installing the base system that takes anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes. I cut all that out of the videos. Sometimes there's occasional hiccups where I screw something up in an install and I have to start over. I cut all that, of course, out of my videos. You know, I don't make you rewatch me do something 2 or 3 times, you know, the exact same way. So you're talking just countless hours in the last 4 months that went into making all these videos. You do, you know, have to have some free time to do that. You know, I do work a full-time job. Outside of that job, I have, you know, other responsibilities, other hobbies and things that it is definitely not easy to do a YouTube channel. And not do the kind of output that I've been doing anyway. And if you're only making, you know, a 5 or 10 minute video once a week, that's one thing. I'm averaging somewhere around a video a day is what it averages out to. I average about a video a day. Again, you know, about 18 minutes or so per video is what it averages out to runtime. It's probably why a lot of YouTubers end up getting burned out. You see a lot of very popular YouTube channels on a variety of topics where somebody will run it for a while, several months, sometimes several years, and then all of a sudden they just drop off the face of the earth. Now sometimes that's for legit reasons, like they've passed away, or they're sick, or in jail, or something like that. But a lot of times people just this becomes a job, and and that is Seduction. I finished the update of Seduction. Anyway, I think I'll update the rest of these off camera. I'll do one more on camera because you guys that didn't watch my FVWM video might want to check out this desktop. This actually won't take very long to update at all, since I've actually been playing around in this distro. Analog mentions the time you've put into your video is appreciated. Thank you, Analog. While I certainly put in some time and effort and hope you guys enjoy this, it's actually pretty educational for me to do a lot of this. So I certainly do this for selfish reasons, Anyway, here is FVWM as I had it set up the other day in my FVWM video. Pretty cool little window manager. Let me open up the file manager here. I need to theme the window decorations a little differently. I'm not satisfied with these colors, but again, that particular video, the FVWM video I did the other day, was nearly a 40-minute video of me trying to config FVWM. Very long video. And of course, that was what I got on camera. It was 40 minutes. I probably spent a couple of hours actually playing around with this. So, anyway, I'm going to quickly go ahead and update the system here. This is actually still kind of a strange beast to me, this FVWM window manager. Like, I'm trying to grab the corners of the window here, and it doesn't want to grab the corners the way I think it should. And then we've got windows really all over the place here on this grid here. I really don't like the way some of that operates. Anyway, 43 packages to update here. Man, this, I was having problems with FVWM when I did this video about how, just moving the mouse around. Watch this. When I move to the bottom, move to the top, move to the bottom, move to the sides, you end up really all over the place on these grids here. These are like little workspaces here on your desktop. Anyway, it's very confusing, but I'm going to let that update run for a little bit, and let's check out what the latest score in the game is. Philadelphia Eagles 22, New England Patriots 12. For those interested. Alright. Eagles are playing sports ball? Wow. Everybody's got football jokes tonight. Now, FVWM, again, was the first of 12 obscure window managers that I was going to review on my channel. Here is a page from the Arch Wiki. Let me pull up Window Manager here in the Arch Wiki. And they list a lot of window managers. Stacking window managers. These stacking window managers, sometimes called floating window managers. Things like 2BWM, AEWM, Afterstep, Blackbox, Compia, CWM, EggWM, Enlightenment, EvilWM, Fluxbox, yada yada yada. Look at this list of window managers I could have reviewed. Then we get to a list of tiling window managers. Another long list. Dynamic window managers. And this is all the window managers, I guess, that are installable in Arch. Of course, I'm running Manjaro, so I could have reviewed a lot more than the 12 window managers that I have set out to review in that series. And I keep getting people messaging me about, hey, will you try out this window manager or that window manager? Because their window manager didn't make my list of 12 that I planned on reviewing. I've had people ask me about DWM. I'm not sure if I'm going to take a look at that down the road or not. I might. BSPWM. I keep getting somebody asking me about that. I need to take a look at that one. I actually had one person, I hope he was joking, he wanted me to review rat poison. I can't remember the last time I saw anybody actually using rat poison or saw a screenshot of anybody using rat poison, but I'm probably not going to review rat poison. iCubic mentions that list had EXWM, which is what he currently uses. Oh, of course. Squiggo mentions he would love to see rat poison. Yeah, rat poison actually was a pretty popular tiling window manager, you know, back when I first really started playing around in Linux. You know, I did see some people using it. I mean, it wasn't that common back then, you know, 10 years ago. But, man, I can't remember the last time I heard of anybody using rat poison. I'm not even sure if it's being developed anymore. I guess I could do a quick search in Google here. And yes, I actually use Google, not DuckDuckGo. I know a lot of people really like to use DuckDuckGo for security reasons, but really, I already have an Android phone. Google knows everything about me, so. Alright, yeah, the last release of Rat Poison actually wasn't that long ago. April 4th of 2017. Rat Poison 1.4.9. iCubic mentions EXWM is a tiling window manager written in eLisp, which basically lets you run XX applications in Emacs. Not an Emacs guy, but that's cool. Alright guys, well I think I'm going to go ahead and shut down the stream for this evening. We've been up and running for about an hour and 45 minutes now, so hope you guys enjoyed this rather pointless live stream of watching me update a few VMs and then just talking some random gibberish occasionally about whatever happened to pop into my head. But I want to thank everybody that joined the chat. You guys are great. iCubic mentions, thank you for streaming. It was fun to drop in. Thank you, iCubic. And I hope to do more of these live streaming events. I'm not exactly sure what I want to do with these live streams, you know, what I want to discuss. But I had some free time this evening. I was actually off. It's Sunday here in the U.S., so I had Sunday off work. and I didn't plan on watching the Super Bowl, which is pretty much what everybody else in the US is doing right now. So I'm here, you know, got a couple of hours free. I figured, you know what, why not live stream something? So hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys again real soon. Thanks.